How you folks doing? So my name's Bob Heisler. I'm with the company. I'm going to let you all set for just a couple of minutes, and then we'll get you up and take you over to the devices. How's that sound? Does that sound good? Okay, my name's Bob Heisler. I'm Director of Sales for Hart Civic. We're delighted to be here this evening. I want to take a couple of moments and tell you a little bit about who we are, Hart Civic. I wouldn't be surprised if that I surveyed the group up until just most recently, maybe within the last week to 2 weeks. Many of you maybe haven't heard of who Hart Civic is, and that's not actually unusual, because if you think about it, the process of actually purchasing voting equipment doesn't really happen but every 10, 12, 13 years. And you go through all that evaluation process at that time, and then what's the most important thing after you make the decision? It's to go out and run successful elections, right? You don't spend a lot of time dwelling on who we looked at, who we considered. We're now running successful elections. So it's been 10 to 12 years since you've actually maybe been looking at voting equipment, and so this is our opportunity to tell you a little bit about who we are. We're based in Austin, Texas, and we've been in business for right at 100 plus, just a little over 100 years. We started out as a printing company, and our first kind of foray into elections was printing ballots for the city of Austin. For those of you that are familiar with Texas, you can imagine that's a pretty big state, and we became the premier ballot printer in the state of Texas, so you can imagine that that turned out to be a very, very good business for Hart Civic. And that actually is what allowed us to go into the technology aspect of elections. In early 2000s, I think around 2002, Hart Civic introduced their first voting solution, and it was called Hart Voting System. We refer to it as HVS. It's much easier than saying Hart Voting System all the time. So it's HVS. HVS was successfully deployed in 18 states. It's actually being used in 2 statewide deployments in the state of Hawaii and the state of Ohio. And in the I would say probably in 2014 timeframe, Hart Civic had to make a decision as to what we were going to do as it related to the HVS voting system, and whether or not we were going to try to modify that system, bolt on some functionality, and make it compliant with the most recent standards, or were we actually going to invest the money, the time, the resources in engineering, designing, building an all-new voting system. And quite frankly, it was pretty clear to us that we needed to take lessons learned over the last decade to 12 years, take the things that we learned about changes in the elections industry, things that could improve our processes and our voting equipment, and put all of that into an all-new system. So at that point in time, we designed and engineered what we call today the Verity voting system. And that's what we are here today going to demonstrate to all of you. It's the Verity voting system. Verity was first federally certified in 2015, and Verity is now being used in 14 states and thousands of precincts. So it's being used statewide, and we're very, very excited about the opportunity of deploying Verity here in the state of North Carolina. Now, I am going to say this. I think it's only natural for some individuals to be in the group and think about Hart Civic and the fact that it's in Austin, Texas, and how can a company that's in Austin, Texas support what our needs are in North Carolina. What I will say to you is that the State Board of Elections did a great job in ensuring that that is not going to be a problem for all of us, whether it's us, Clear Ballot, our ES&S, are going to be represented here through a local office, and we're going to have local personnel that are going to be actually supporting our solutions here in the state. So one of the things that you don't have to worry about is that there's going to be this significant detachment between all of you in North Carolina and Hart Civic, because we're down in Austin. Yes, we're in Austin. That's not only our home office, but that's our manufacturing facility. So Verity is an American-made product, but that doesn't mean that that's where it stops. We will also be supporting you right here on the ground in North Carolina. So having said all of that, any questions for me about Hart? No? Okay. All right. Sean, you want to talk about the voting devices?
Sure, yeah. My name's Sean Phillips. I've been with Hart for about 15 years, and I started in the poll worker training and implementation side. So I say that just to say I have a kind of an eye for what the poll worker and what the voter experience is going to be, and I'm going to walk you through that here today. And I want to say you're looking at a bunch of paper-based systems that are all certified here in North Carolina. So what I want to focus on is some of the differentiators about Hart, some of the things that set us apart, and why I think this system is, the best fit for North Carolina and meets some of the needs that have been raised here in the last few months. So I am going to ask you to stand up and come a little closer because we're going to talk about these devices. So please don't be shy. Come up here, join me. I want to set the stage of what. We'll wait for people to come up here. So Bob mentioned our legacy system, the Hart voting system. It's important from the outset to tell you that that legacy system was a digital scanning system. It was the first in the nation. We brought digital scanning to elections. This system is our second generation of a digital scanning system. And now everyone is bringing digital systems into the marketplace, which we think is a good thing. I think you'll realize that if you've ever built something, when you build it again, you're going to build it better, right? So this is our second generation of that. We've been able to learn from the lessons of the digital scanning before. One of the things that we wanted to do was build a common platform. So you see two devices in front of you here today. They have the same look and feel. They're the same suitcase style design. It's a common platform that allows us to really streamline poll worker training and also supplies and parts and pieces. So notice the device here and over there. This is what it looks like when it's collapsed down. So it's small, compact, lightweight. It really provides operational efficiencies to the counties. Maybe you need a warehouse space that's a third of the size that you had before. Maybe you need many less trucks to deliver that equipment into the polling place. It also means that all of your parts and pieces, your power cables, your paper rolls, your batteries, all of that is identical. So you're not having to worry about which power cord am I sending to the polling place, things like that. So really easy operational efficiencies. It also means that poll workers only need to learn one device instead of learning multiple devices, because the way you turn it on, plug it in, set it up is identical across the board. Okay? So I want to focus on this machine first. This is the precinct scanner or tabulator that every voter will insert their ballot through this system in the polling location. All ballots will be down in the box at the end of the night. Votes are stored in 3 places. The paper ballot down below, a removable drive that is for tabulation, and then also on the device as well. So that triple redundancy means if anything happens to one of those layers, we can always recover those votes without having to rescan all those ballots. As far as what the voter will do, I'm going to grab a paper ballot here. This is a paper ballot system. Lost my pen. So. Thank you, sir. The voter they'll be checked in, processed, qualified as normal. They will go to a privacy booth where they will spend as much time as they need to mark their ballot. So filling in the boxes here. We know that all voters may not mark the ballot like that, so if they do check in the box or X's, I'm going to show you that it will pick up those as well. And the way I'm proving that is that I've overvoted this particular race. So I've marked 2 with a check and an X. The voter can put the ballot in any orientation, face up, face down, footer first, header first. It takes that ballot, takes about 3 to 5 seconds to analyze it, and then the ballot comes back out. So remember I said I was going to talk about differentiators? That's a differentiator. We don't hold the ballot inside because we know study after study after study that people don't read screens. So if the ballot goes in, nothing happens, they're going to walk away. When the ballot comes right back out to you, you know something's wrong. I'm not done here. So we want to be able to catch that voter and make sure that they get their second chance voting. So the voter has 2 options now. They can pull the ballot. The machine forgets about it altogether. They can now spoil this ballot and vote another one to fix their mistake. If the voter says, I'm in a hurry, I like both those candidates, I don't know what the rationale might be, but they might say, I want to cast the ballot as is. They always have that option to cast the ballot as is. When they do that, the ballot drops down below into the secure box, and you see the waving American flag. It's ready to go for the next voter with the lights to indicate where they need to put the ballot in. Now on election day, of course, this will be locked and sealed, but today I'm going to show you that there is a removable bin inside. All the ballots will be collected in this. At the end of the night, poll workers will zip this up. When the zippers come together, there's a place for a tamper evidence seal, and they transport this back to the election office. Remember, a vote is stored in 3 places: the paper ballot, the removable drive, and the hard drive of the machine. So are there any questions I can answer about the precinct tabulator? Okay. The other machine that I want to point out to you is the accessible ADA device. So this device is going to provide accessibility options for voters who may need that. It is going to allow them to mark that ballot if they don't have the ability to mark it themselves, and it's going to print a full ballot for that voter. So the voter can begin the voting process, and now one thing that I've done already is set it up for them. A poll worker has to start the session. You can't just walk up to it and start using it. But I'm using the touchscreen interface to navigate through and make my selections. I can also use the accessible interface here to turn a wheel and then hit the select button to make my choices. So if I'm a voter who is completely blind, I can plug in the headphones. Every turn of the wheel is reading the ballot to me, and then when I say select, it now tells me you have selected Cesar Chavez. The end result, whether I am blind, whether I'm using the touchscreen, whether I need to use a dialing wand, I can select how I want this ballot to be presented to me. One of the things I can do as a voter who may be visually impaired is I can turn the screen off. So if I'm completely visually impaired, I'm using the audio, someone looking over my shoulder isn't going to be able to see what I'm doing. So this provides all those accessibility options for that voter. And then the end result, I'm going to go ahead and jump ahead. The end result is that I can review my choices and then print my ballot. So once I hit print, it says, are you sure you want to do that? Yes, print my ballot. What this is going to do, and I've already got one printed out here from the earlier session, is this produces a fully marked ballot that looks exactly like every other ballot in the polling location. So that's another differentiator for Hart, is that we are printing a full ballot that looks like every other ballot. And the reason I bring that up is the scenario of you may not have a lot of voters use this accessible device in the polling place, and specifically the scenario of one person uses this device in the polling location. If their ballot looks different than any other ballot, you know how that voter voted. So we were committed to an equal ballot for all voters, uniform across whatever method you choose to mark your selection. The other thing that I will talk about, and this is the one that I just printed up, the other thing that I'll talk about is our use of barcodes on the ballot. So you may have heard a lot of issues about barcodes on ballots. Our system never embeds voter selections in a barcode. We know that the whole reason why all across the country we see counties and systems going to paper-based is because of the public perception and mistrust of electronic voting. So what we wanted to do was, instead of creating a ballot or a summary card that puts those voter selections in a barcode, we wanted to sidestep that altogether. I'm not saying that other systems are switching votes in barcodes or anything like that, but the public perception is there that if the human readable thing on that ballot is not what is driving the tabulation, the mistrust will persist down the line. So the human readable thing, this mark on the ballot that I can see very clearly, this vote is for John Adams, that is what drives the tabulation. If what I can read is not what drives the tabulation, that's when we get into trouble. So you're going to say, but Sean, there's barcodes on this ballot. What are those barcodes? We need those barcodes to identify that this is a proper ballot for the election. It says that this is a ballot for this election. It tells me what precinct it is. Remember when I said you can put the ballot in any orientation? Those barcodes need to identify what side of the ballot it is, because if the voter puts it in upside down, it needs to be able to identify this ballot's upside down. So there's all kinds of bits of information that are in these barcodes, and we have a sheet over there that explains exactly what's in our barcodes, but it's not a system that ever embeds voter selections in that barcode. So two big differentiators are a full ballot for every voter that is identical and no votes in the barcodes there. We also, again, I'll reiterate the common platform, the ability for a poll worker to learn one device and know how to set them all up. Another thing we like about this common platform is that it's kind of an insurance policy on your purchase and your investment, because we expect the system, and this is in writing, that the system should last 15 years. What may happen in those 15 years legislatively or through different voting methodologies and new types, we will be able to convert these machines if needed at a fraction of the cost without having to buy a brand new system. And it's because of that common platform that we can swap out those parts and pieces to make it do something other than what its initial function is right now. So these are the two devices that will be required in every polling location, a precinct-based scanner and an ADA device. And then we have one other device that I'm going to shift over here to talk about, and this would be an optional device for counties to use in their one-stop or early voting polling location. I mean, they could use it in any location, but we really envision it for the one-stop and early voting sites. What this machine does is it prints blank ballots on demand at the polling location. It's not designed for voters to use like these other two devices, but poll workers would be able to print blank ballots right then and there for that voter when they come in. So as we transition to paper ballots, remember everyone can come to your early voting site. So you've got two options essentially. If you don't print ballots on demand, you either have to pre-print all of those ballots, and you're having to guess how many do I need of each and every style along the way, right? And if you're having to guess, of course you're going to print way more than you need because we never want to run out, and that's going to present waste. You're going to have a lot of waste at the end of the election. The other option is you buy a lot of machines, and every voter uses a touchscreen interface. So you can either print a whole bunch of ballots and have a lot of waste, and potentially run out of a certain style, or you can buy a whole lot of machines to accommodate all those voters coming in. Unless you go with this system and you print that ballot right then and there for the voter. So this device can handle every ballot style in the entire county. Whoever walks in the door, we check them in, we qualify them, we make sure that they're registered to vote. And then remember, a polling place official will use this, not the voter, but they issue the ballot, and then they choose that voter's precinct, and they can even start to type it in. So if I know that this voter's in precinct 404, well, as soon as I type 4, it whittles down my list, and now I'm ready to print the ballot. So we need one of these, generally speaking, one of these setups for every 2 check-in stations at a polling location. So we know that it varies across the country, but generally speaking, it takes about 30 seconds to a minute to check a voter in, and it takes 15 seconds to print this ballot for that voter. So the workflow of your polling place means that one of these for every 2 check-in stations should keep a nice flow through that one-stop early voting site. And then from here, I think it's pretty self-explanatory that the voter just takes this blank ballot that's for their ballots, for their precinct, for their ballot style. They go to the privacy booth and they mark the ballot with a pen, just like I mentioned before. Any questions about this device?
Don't run out of paper.
Don't run out of paper. Yeah. One of the other things that it's a lot more flexible just to have paper though instead of all those pre-printed ballots. Another differentiator about the system from well, 2 things I'll say about our ballot on demand versus others is this is, again, the same suitcase design that the poll workers already know. So they know how to set it up. Same power cord, same power button, all that stuff streamlines that process. And the other thing is we don't charge click charges. So what that means is when the election's over, we don't come in and say, oh, 93 ballots were printed, here's your bill for all of those ballots that you printed. We just say, once you buy the system from Hart, you got to buy paper. And occasionally you got to change out the toner. Every 5,000 ballots or so, you got to change out the toner. But that's your only cost going forward, which you would have that cost with any other ballot on demand system as well. So it's initial upfront investment that saves the county money in the long term because you're not overprinting all those ballot styles and you're not getting charged those quick charges ongoing.
Did you not put that function in the 88 machine? So it would do
The
dual purpose?
The 88 machine will print a blank ballot if you need it to. So it's a little bit slower of a process because it has all those other functions in it as well. But that's a really great point. In a pinch, if you were to run out of blank ballots in the polling place and you didn't have this, you could print those blank ballots from the accessible device. Are there any questions I can answer about the three devices? Do we understand the distinction between the three? Ballot on demand, precinct scanning, and accessibility. Remember, at the end of the night, all of our votes are here in the scanner. The accessible device does not store any votes. It's just a method for that voter to get that marked paper ballot and put it through the scanner.
The 88 machine, does it have overvote functionality? Will it not allow overvotes?
It will not allow overvotes.
And then what's the average time from hitting the button to the ballot printing out roughly?
That's really hard to say based on, it just depends on that specific voter. If you mean from here, from hitting the button to how this will print, it's 15 seconds to print a ballot. Yeah, that one, it's all based on how long the voter takes to navigate the ballot and make their selection. So I'd be telling you the wrong thing if I even took a guess. Yeah.
Which states are using Hart now?
We're in 18 states overall. We've got you kind of surrounded a little bit. We're in Virginia, we're in Tennessee, we're in Kentucky. So, but to list them all off.
But nobody out west?
Oh yeah, we're in California, Oregon, Washington. We're based in Texas, so we have a big footprint in Texas. We're statewide in Oklahoma. We have Minnesota, Michigan, Ohio, Indiana. Just spouting them off now, but yeah, we're in 18 states total. Okay, yeah. California's going through this refresh cycle right now, and we've actually expanded our footprint there in the last few months. So yeah, we've been around for a long, long time. We're ready for the challenges here that North Carolina presents, and we're just excited to be certified now so that we can bring options to this state.
So do you have a comparable to the ES&S Central Count scanner?
We do. That's what I have right here. This is generally speaking more of a back-end thing that's in the office, but this scanner is our high-speed scanner. So what we do is we use commercial off-the-shelf scanners. This is a Canon scanner. We have two different models of it, one that does 100 pages per minute, one that does 130 pages per minute. The difference between our system and some of the others is it's non-proprietary, it's a fraction of the cost, and our scanners never stop and they never outstack ballots. So the perfect example that I have is up here on the screen.
Until we end this session, you have approximately 2 minutes until we end this session.
All right, I'm going to talk really fast now. If a voter made a mismark on their ballot that they mailed in, like this, but their voter intent was clear, currently what is happening is that ballot is being outstacked. That ballot needs to be duplicated and put back through the scanner. So you're having to print that ballot, duplicate that ballot, put it back through a scanner. You also have two ballots that represent one voter's vote, which we think is not super transparent. All that work is solved with our system with one click. So in this situation, you can see the voter's intent is very, very clear. I'll try to move it so everybody can see. With one click, I've now adjudicated and resolved that contest. And notice the flag that it puts up here, that lets me know that a user has come in and resolved that contest, and we can filter for that after the election to audit those actions and make sure that the board and the people who are doing that got it right. So instead of, again, reprinting, duplicating, and rescanning, it's a one-click change. So I will also say this is not an untested or untried system. We've been doing this type of on-screen adjudication since all the way back in 2002, all across the country. So you mentioned the West Coast. They do a lot of by-mail voting on the West Coast. We're very big in those states. Are there any other questions I can answer? Because I've got like 12 seconds. Thank you all very much.